All right, fellas, got to start with Shohei Ohtani. Big show back on the mound yesterday, but not batting DH. Pitched very well. Ends up giving up 1 earned run on 2 hits, 6 innings of work, 10 strikeouts, 2 walks. Leaned on that fastball. But first we're going to talk about is Fabian not batting the DH spot. Didn't seem like it was a big deal. Just got hit a couple days ago, feeling some soreness. Was 0 for 7 since he got hit by Peterson. But what'd you make of him not batting DH while pitching?
Yeah, it seemed like it was maybe opening Pandora's box a little bit, but I think it was obviously an isolated incident here that sort of led to this. Like, obviously, the hit by pitch coming 2 days prior, they just wanted to make sure that he wasn't in a position where he was trying to get loose or stay loose to pitch while hitting. And that was one of the things that the first day after the injury, or not the injury, but after the hit by pitch, they basically, between at-bats, he was trying to make sure he was in the cage, just trying to keep that thing loose. So rather than have to deal with that and possibly have a shorter start, they wanted to have him just only pitch, be at a spot where between innings he went down the tunnel, was mostly game planning, wasn't doing that much treatment, but just enough to keep it loose. And obviously the end results were really good. Is this something the Dodgers do going forward? I don't know. I think the door is open. I think it's one of those things that maybe in like August and September, if he's like really feeling it and he just like needs a day just focus on pitching it. The fact that he's done it this season sort of gives you a blueprint for it, but I don't think it's necessarily something the Dodgers are going to explore doing all that often, partially because if he's going to do this in October, he's going to have to do both.
Yeah, and he did mention just fatigue after his start in Toronto, how that could have been impacting his mechanics, but the results were still there, Jerry. It's not like he had not pitched well on days where he hit. He still pitched at an excellent high level, but still, I mean, as Fabian pointed out, hey, if there are some games where he does struggle at the plate and pitch when he's at the same time, they're going to start to ask that question. And it's just a really long season, so it's good to have that option now that we know it's available.
Absolutely. I love the fact that the Dalton Rushing got a chance to get some at-bats, and obviously he took advantage of it. That is a great option to have. You can give Shohei Ohtani necessary rest when he does start. Now, are they going to do this a lot? Probably not, but it's always good to know that in the back of your mind, especially if you're Shohei Ohtani. Hey, you know what? If I'm not feeling that well, as far as maybe kind of getting tired a little bit as the season goes along, we got a great option in Dalton. He can get some at-bats, or you can have Will Smith, DH, and make sure that, he stays fresh as well. So I like the fact that they did this for him. So I know moving forward, he knows that could be an option. Now, probably in the postseason, you're not going to do that, depending on how he feels. He's going to want to hit. But that is something that we can consider. And I love the fact that he just focused on pitching last night, and he absolutely dealt. And that velocity was up, and he was spotting that fastball. I know he had an at-bat with Francisco Lindor last night. I think it was like an 11 or 12 pitch at-bat. He finished him off with that nasty running fastball. I love the fact that he's able to focus on pitching, and he pitched extremely well. So he's not going to do it often, but it's good to know that, you know what, when he does need a day or a break just to focus on pitching, I can't believe we're still talking about this, that's how elite he is. He can go out there and give us 6-7 strong innings.
Yeah, I mean, as you mentioned, leaning on that fastball, throwing the 4-seam, almost felt like had some 2-seam level run on it. He did talk about a little bit after the game, not leaning on that splitter as much. What did you kind of just make about his arsenal last night?
Yeah, I think we keep seeing Ohtani kind of get into the full part of the arsenal. I think he was very heavy on the fastball yesterday. In a lot of ways, kind of reminded me a little bit of how he looked last year when he was first coming back, where he knew he was going to be just going for a couple of innings and really was letting it rip. I think when you see him dial up the fastball velocity, it's usually a sign that maybe he's not feeling as great about the command. Although it did seem like the command, when he's dialing up the velocity, was sort of coming along with that. I think especially when he gave up that first run in the 5th inning, you saw him kind of take it to a different level. You saw him get a little bit irritated with himself at his first run he'd allowed all season. And you saw him sort of dial it up. I think right afterwards, he unleashed 4 straight pitches that were 100 miles an hour or harder. So, this is a guy who we know the stuff is good. We also see some of the craft to it. I think that's one of those things that's really fascinating to see, that he's getting comfortable in his body, getting comfortable after a second surgery. You're seeing him pitch backwards to guys. You're seeing him hold something in reserve for later on in starts. And you're also seeing him do stuff like you mentioned that, Jerry, that 11 pitch at bat to Lindor. He finished that off with a slide step, a timing mechanism to kind of throw him off. And like that sort of caught my attention. Like that's a sign that he is feeling in command of things and is willing to sort of toy with and mess with a hitter like that. That sort of tells me sort of how fully rounded he is as a pitcher at this point.
And you mentioned that, Fabian. That was great to see. Watching Shohei Ohtani, I know he's new age, new school, but the way he pitches, it's old school. Yes, he runs that fastball 98 to 100 miles an hour, but he drops in that slow curveball. Then he cuts it, sinks it. He pitches. He's not a thrower. He's got that throwback style, and when he needs to, he'll throw 94 to 95 with that fastball, sink it a little bit. But with 2 strikes, okay, you know what? You're fouling off a lot of pitches. Let me go to the slide step, kind of rush you a little bit out of Johnny Cueto back in the day, and then boom, rush you. And that's what got Francisco Lindor to smile. After like, man, dude, seriously, you're going to do that slide step on me, kind of mess up my timing and my rhythm. So I love the way Shohei Ohtani pitches. It's certainly old school with the new school twist.
Yeah, and he talked about it after the game. He was asked about that, just being able to crank it up. You saw him the strikeout to Pham, starting with the sweep and then going, bam, triple digits. And I know you like to talk about Pedro Martinez a lot, Jerry Harrison. He's the same way, right? I mean, he's a guy that can really crank it up when he needed to. It does feel a little old school with Shohei and just adjusting and kind of going what he's feeling on any given night. And he still has that massive arsenal he can dip into, but the results are certainly there. I mean, 0.83 FIP, a 0.83 expected FIB. I think, Fabian, the early results, I mean, this version of Shohei Ohtani certainly is screaming Cy Young, even though it's an extremely small sample size. I mean, he's as good as it gets right now in the National League and in all of baseball, really.
Yeah, I think the thing that we've discussed throughout the show really is like it's never been a doubt of the ability of Ohtani. Like I think we've seen, like, especially when he goes out there on a per inning basis, he's had stretches where he's looked like one of the best pitchers in baseball. I think the question is going to be workload, in terms of like scheduling, if he's going to get enough starts, if he's going to log enough innings. But on a per inning basis, he's done his job. Like the fact that he's got an ERA sitting below 1 right now, I'm sure he looked irritated that it was up from 0. So I think that's one of those things where he knows his margin is very, very slim to win the Cy Young. It's going to have to really take him being the best pitcher on baseball by far on a per inning basis to sort of make up for that gap. But like I think he's obviously capable of it physically. It's just one of the things that's so difficult to do over the course of a season while he's balancing everything. It's going to make every single start he has on the mound really interesting to watch. But I do think that on a per inning basis, we've seen just how dominant he can be, and that's the one thing that for the Dodgers, with their mind, like obviously they like him to have a good regular season. Like if he wins Cy Young, that's great for them. But like, they're watching this version of him right now, and they're thinking October. Like this is a guy who is capable of putting together a start like he did in the NLCS against the Brewers, and who is capable of shutting down an entire lineup on any given night whenever it's his turn to pitch.
Yeah, I mean, he even said I could make it through the 7th. I mean, he's ready. He's clearly as healthy as he's been as a Dodger on the mound. And I think the biggest takeaway is you see a performance like that yesterday, and he doesn't bat, and it kind of the question creeps in that you mentioned you're playing for 7 months. You're playing for October. But let's be honest, guys. I mean, you're not going to not want to have like 100 at-bats of Shohei Ohtani, right? I mean, if you were to not hit on days when he pitches. And on top of that, too, there's just a rule. I mean, the Shohei Ohtani rule isn't in place. So when he comes out of the game, it's not like he can go to the DH spot. And then if he goes to the outfield, you lose your DH. I mean, Fabian kind of break down why it doesn't really make sense from that standpoint as well.
Yeah, it would also just take Dalton Rushing basically hitting a grand slam basically every single time out, or whoever's in the DH spot, where it would take a lot of offensive production to fill that spot to make it worthwhile to miss out on those 100 or so plate appearances from Ohtani. Because I think the big thing that's sort of looming over this whole thing with him on the mound, like obviously we see how talented he is. Everyone kind of knows how good of a pitcher he is. No one's going to tell him not to pitch at this point. But the big concern in the back of your head is, all right, if he gets injured pitching, does this take his bat out of the lineup? Because we've seen at the end of the day, like even if he's pitching or not, like that bat is as important as anything to the Dodgers. And obviously the late barrage yesterday kind of made the offensive numbers look a little bit better, but this was a lineup that it's not like they were necessarily hitting Clay Holmes out all that well. I'm sure some guys are going to get going. It's a deeper lineup, but it's just a different lineup when Shohei Ohtani isn't in there. So, yeah, maybe this is something to sprinkle in over the course of the season if he needs some more rest. but I don't think this is something that the Dodgers are going to say, hey, you just shouldn't hit on days that you pitch.
Yeah, exactly. And we got to talk about Dalton Rushing. I thought it was cool when you went up to Rushing and you told him that Shohei had said that they had a pretty good DH and it was Dalton Rushing. And man, did he answer the bell? Did he have an answer for that challenge? He goes 2 for 4, had the 4 RBIs. I mean, if it wasn't for that double that he hit, Haseong Kim doesn't have that 2-run home run. And then he hits the grand slam. I mean, it feels like everything's a movie with Shohei Ohtani. And even something like this, going up to Dalton Rushing, saying, hey, hit a home run, and then he hits a grand slam. It's just kind of one of those things where Dalton Rushing, a great quote and just great insight to kind of the clubhouse culture of the Dodgers. Hey, I'm out, but you're going to step up. You're going to step in a big way. Jerry, that impressive night for your guy, Dalton Crushing, as you so affectionately have dubbed him.
It's amazing. And that's part of being a leader. Shohei Ohtani being a leader, showing, hey, dude, go out there and do your thing. You never listen, Dalton Rushing, he's a confident young man. But sometimes you realize, you know what, hey, I'm DHing tonight. Usually Shohei is the DH. I may put a little extra pressure on myself. For Shohei Ohtani to go up there and say, hey, man, I give my approval. You go out there, do your thing. You know what? In fact, go out there, go deep. Do your thing. That kind of sets a nice little tone for you as the hitter. Hey, I'm going to just go out there and do my thing. Now, obviously, he goes out there, hits a grand slam, goes 2 for 4. That's something to be said about a leader that Shohei Ohtani is, understanding, hey, man, I'm going to go out there and let him know, bro, I'm in full support of you. You do your thing. I'm going to focus on pitching tonight. And Dalton Rushing goes out there and has a night. So just goes to show that Dodgers are being a little bit creative when Shohei Ohtani, needed that kind of rest day, so to speak, not hitting, and have a guy like a Dalton Rushing step in and do his thing. So it just goes to show how deep this Dodger roster is and how prepared our young guys are. You mentioned Kim hitting that home run right after Dalton Rushing hit that double. These guys understand their role and they understand what they need to do to help this team win. So it's not just a team full of superstars. We got great complementary pieces as well.
Yeah, I think it was really fitting, too, against a team like the Mets that also has a massive bloated payroll, but for the young stars really in the Dodgers organization to continue to emerge, to be major contributors. And you look at that at bat there in the second inning, Rushing is down 0-2 in the count. He swings and misses at that changeup, and the very next pitch, really same location, he cranks it for a double, and that leads to the Kim home run. Fabian, we kind of talked to Rushing a little bit after the game yesterday, and he kind of talked about some of those adjustments. I was talking about kind of his load, and he told me that he had an inconsistent load last season against breaking balls, and now it's a little more consistent, allows him to not guess against breaking pitches. Have you seen those adjustments already really pay dividends early on for Rushing?
Yeah. He's really simplified the stance, and he simplified his swing, try to get to a place where, it requires less maintenance. But I think the big thing I'm watching with him is sort of what he's doing, what he said he wanted to do in spring training, in terms of he's doing more by doing less. He's not trying to go out and hit a grand slam every at bat. He is sort of looking like the version of Dalton Rushing that he was in the minor leagues, which he became one of the better hitters in the minors by being a polished guy who is really, really strict about his strike zone, really strict about what pitches he can do damage on. And rather than trying to force the action, he's letting it come to him. And he knows that he's hitting towards the bottom of the order. He knows that that's going to possibly work in his favor. He's going to see more pitches and counts. He's going to be in spots where guys are going to be more willing to leave a 2-strike pitch closer to the plate as opposed to just trying to waste a pitch and try to get into chase. And he's taking advantage of that. He knows he's getting a feel for what guys are trying to do for him. And he's a smart hitter. He always has been a smart hitter. But if he's not trying to outthink it, instead of he's like, all right, this is how they usually will attack me. I have to be ready for this. And he is. He's at this point where, is he going to keep hitting 500 all season long? Probably not. But this looks a lot more like the version of Dalton Rushing that he was in the minor leagues. And it's difficult to maintain in a part-time role, but it's one of those things that he seems much better equipped to handle it than he was this time last year.
Yeah, and he talked about just having those feet in position where he can do damage on every pitch, where he's not worried about an 0-0 change or an 0-0 curveball. And you're going to like this, Jerry. He said that, quote, I almost feel like I have a little bit of swagger, right? And confidence is something that doesn't show up on a box score. You don't see it on a Fangraphs page, but it's a major difference maker, especially for a young player like Rushing.
Absolutely. And Fabian, you touched on it. He's keeping it simple, especially, I've seen it a lot on YouTube or on social media, where you have guys that are swing gurus or swing coaches. Anybody can have a nice looking swing, but can you hit? That's the key. Can you hit? In order to hit at the big leagues, you got to be able to simplify things. You look at Freddie Freeman. Why has he had so much success? He keeps it simple, balanced, on time, and allows his body to use his hands. Dalton Rushing said, you know what? I'm just going to go out there and keep it simple. Make sure I'm balanced and make sure I'm on time and I can go out there and perform. And that's what we're seeing Dalton Rushing do. Sometimes when you're a young player, you're rushing and I got to impress. I got to go 5 for 5. If I don't, then I might get set down, or I may not get another start another week. And then other pitchers see that and they'll disrupt your timing, disrupt your rhythm, and get you off balance. We're seeing Dalton Rushing be on time and stay balanced throughout his swing, and that allows him to be himself and do his thing. So that is the maturity of Dalton Rushing, realizing, hey, man, I'm just going to be myself, and it's going to be good. I may go 1 for 4 one night, or I can go 4 for 4, but I'm sticking to my game plan on making sure I'm staying balanced and making sure that I'm on time, and he has thrived so far, and this is him. This is Dalton Rushing, and we've seen this with Andy Paez, and I think, dare I say this, we're starting to see this with Haseong Kim. Okay, understanding, you know what? I'm a bat-to-ball skills guy. I cannot strike out a lot. I'm going to keep it simple. I'm going to stay balanced and allow my body to be able to use my hands properly. And we've seen him screw up the baseball. And as a result, he went deep last night on a fastball.
Yeah, and we can talk about Kim. I mean, not just the home run, but also this play at shortstop. 8th inning, makes that nice play, stronger throw, and it feels like obviously you want Mookie Betts back as soon as possible, but the more consistent he plays at shortstop, and if the bat continues to play, Fabian, he's going to earn himself some more time.
Yeah, it's an interesting conversation, kind of like we were talking about last week, where he's turned it back into the same competition it was in spring training. Alex Freeland has obviously still done largely what the Dodgers have wanted him to do. He's worked at bats. He's played solid defense at second base. The results haven't quite come, and it's still early for Kim. We saw this last year when he sort of first hit the ground running and some regression came for him. But I do think some of the stuff under the hood is looking a little bit better for Kim. He did strike out 3 times last night after the home run, but still, in general, we are seeing him hit the ball on a line more often. He's not getting under as many balls. He seems a lot more balanced in his swing. And really, at the end of the day, he is such a good athlete that he just has to make sure the swing is in a decent place, and then he's going to get some results as a result. He's going to get some good bad ball luck as a result just because of his speed purely and what he can sort of do, what positions he puts guys in. You can sort of see also just the way that they line up defensively against him. It's different from most guys. They have to bring the third baseman all the way in. They have to play the shortstop all the way over. There's a giant hole for him possibly if he can sort of consistently hit the ball the other way or hit the ball on the line. He can have some success there. So he looks like he's in a lot better spot than he was at the beginning of spring training. We saw this a little bit at the beginning of spring training, though, so we have to make sure that his swing is in a consistent place. And I think that's the last thing with a swing change is you can sort of do it 1 or 2 reps, but it's about drilling it. So it's point, this is just your swing at this point and not a swing change.
And it seems like for Kim, too, it's a good situation where because Mookie's out and there's some runway there, it's not like he's in this daily competition with Alex Freeland looking over his shoulder. If he goes 0 for 4 and he goes 2 and Freeland goes 2 for 4, it's like, oh, what's going to have my playing time? It feels like it's a pretty comfortable way to kind of ease him in and see, Jerry, if those swing changes are going to pay dividends in the long run and just really be able to evaluate and assess him in a longer stretch.
And I'm anxious to see how he makes the adjustments from last night, because he's going to get some time, some burn. Can he make those adjustments? And listen, I love the line drive home run. That was a product of a great swing, and it was on a fastball. Remember last year, he had a hard time hitting fastballs. He did strike out 3 times, though. Now, are you able to make the adjustment next time out there? Hopefully tomorrow, if he gets that start, he's able to make those adjustments and he's on base or gives himself a chance to get on base by putting the ball and play hard 4 or 5 times. So nice little runway here. So he's going to have a chance, an opportunity to stick, but it's all up to him. Can he make those adjustments? And Fabian talked about it. It's going from a swing change And now this is your swing. He's got to get there every single time. And that's the big leaguer. You're going to have big leaguers hit 310, 245, 275. But what are we going to see? Are you that consistent guy every single night? Because that's what managers do. When they write up their lineup card, I know what I'm going to get from this guy. I know what I'm going to get from this guy, and so on and so forth. He's got to get to that point knowing that he's a consistent guy, that is a guy that puts the ball in play on a consistent basis.
I think, too, you got to have a role on this team, and he certainly has just more tools as far as the versatility piece of it with center field, shortstop, second base, the pinch running. If he can prove that he can hit, at least not get overmatched and have those dead at bats and just be consistently getting on base, it feels like it's going to be a no-brainer to take really that last spot on the bench even when everyone's healthy, Fabian.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I think the one thing is he still has some time to figure it out. Obviously, Mookie Betts is in a good place where like the oblique is not bothering with as much anymore, but he's still at a point where he's not swinging yet. So that tells me that it's still going to be a little while before he's active. I think he needs to see this sort of like Jerry said, like this is a run, like this is a runway. Like you have to have sort of a chance to not feel like you have to win the job on one given night, but also show consistently like who you are, what you're going to provide in the lineup every single day. The defense has been much better. I think he's sort of shown that every single day. Like he wasn't a bad defender, but also wasn't a guy that they really felt super comfortable at shortstop this time last year. He obviously the range is really good, but the throwing has gotten a lot better, and you're seeing him feel a lot more comfortable with position. So you're seeing that defensively, and that's going to give you a high floor. But he just has to continue to make contact, continue to sort of show that he can fit that role, which is really what they need out of the 9th spot. Like they just need a guy who is a little bit more dynamic. They need a guy who can be on base for Shohei Ohtani, especially when on those balls that Shohei Ohtani hooks the ball into the corner. Kim's one of those guys who can burn and score from first pretty easily, and that sort of changes things a little bit.
And it feels like he understands the formula of what it takes to be on the Los Angeles Dodgers if you're not a superstar and if you're not an all-star. And that's be versatile, to be dynamic, to be able to be good at multiple things. And he certainly is proving that in this limited stint back up in the show. All right, fellas, we talked about the bottom of the lineup. I took some Andy Pages. Can't really talk about Pages enough really early on the season. But how much of a breath of fresh air was it to see Kyle Tucker have some success? I mean, it was grinding watching those at-bats, below average hitter for the most part through the first couple weeks of the season. I mean, big takeaway there. They're 14-4, and Shohei Ohtani really isn't at his best offensively yet. Kyle Tucker isn't at his best offensively yet. Mookie Betts has been out. Freddie's been there. Smith has been there. But, I mean, they put up this record, and they're what are going to be their top hitters really haven't even gotten close to being the guys that they've been throughout the most part of their career.
I agree. Listen, Kyle Tucker, I know he's going to hit. Remember, sometimes when you come over to a new team, obviously we know about the big contract. You may be trying a little bit too hard, and he's probably trying to impress. This kid is too good of a player. I mean, he's a dynamic outfielder. He plays a tremendous right field, strong, accurate throwing arm. He can run, great base runner. I really believe he's going to have a great offensive season. Once he finds his footing and is comfortable, I think he's going to put up 25 to 30 home runs, hit around 280, possibly 300, hitting in that 2 spot, right behind Shohei Ohtani, right in front of Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman. He's too good of a player. He's just too good of a player. He's been in great lineups before. He knows how to win. So I'm not worried about Kyle Tucker, and I'm not worried about the big show. He's going to catch fire with the bat. And then obviously when Mookie Betts comes back, he's going to be strong, healthy, and then the rest really is history with Freddie Freeman, Teoscar Hernandez, and Will Smith. And then, dare I say, MV Pages, who's been on an absolute tear.
You got another one of your T-shirts for your future lucrative T-shirt company. I like it. But also, I mean, look, Fabian, like you just felt like he needed a moment. I mean, the other night it's under 60 miles per hour off the bat, but it's still, hey, it looks like a scorching line drive in the box score. It puts the Dodgers ahead, and then he follows that up with a home run in last night's game. And this is Kyle Tucker, as Jerry pointed out. I mean, this is someone who his track record speaks for himself. He's been an all-star bat, top 10 to 15 throughout his career. But there's something, and I know you've seen this, Fabian, guys like Trey Turner, even Juan Soto last year. Sometimes guys sign the big deal, and it takes really a couple of months. Even look at Lindor, too, when he signed with the Mets. I mean, sometimes these big deals, it just takes some time for them to find their footing and really be the players that they really are.
Yeah, I don't think the Dodgers are obviously worried about Kyle Tucker, but I do think that it was telling to hear Dave Roberts say it, talking to Aaron Bates this week, to hear him say it. There's probably a little bit of him trying to do too much, which when I talked to Kyle about it, he sort of said, like, no, I'm not necessarily trying to do that. My swing's just a little bit off. But I think some of the underlying numbers kind of show that, like the fact that he's chasing, the fact that he's swinging at the first pitch way more than he ever has. He had, I think, the biggest year-over-year jump in that. When you're getting out of your approach, that sort of tells me a little bit that, like, hey, either you're not feeling great about your swing or you're trying to force hits or some combination of both. And I think it's understandable. This is a guy who signed for the richest average annual value in baseball history. There's something to the contract where, whether it's front of your mind, back of mind, like it's one of those things that you can't really shake in terms of like that's something you're going to hear about. That's something that's sort of attached to you. You want to do well. And I do think there is something to like just getting a feel for things. And it was also just like 18 games that he's played. So he'll probably be fine. I do think that having a swing like he did the other night was nice, that he stayed in against the lefty. That sort of sacrificing the power just to get put together a good bat is a good sign. The power, obviously, yesterday was a good sign late in the game. He hasn't quite barreled up a ton of balls like that. And I do think it probably helps his batting line knowing that he's going to Coors Field coming up next, which is probably could be the ultimate just like confidence boost to sort of free him up. Because this is a guy, like Jerry said, like this is a guy who has been one of the more consistent hitters in baseball. Obviously struggled in the second half last year. A lot of that probably due to some health stuff. But this is a guy who has shown he can be, you can sort of bake in that he's going to hit 280, 25 homers at least, and be a productive hitter. The Dodgers don't need him to carry the lineup. If he's putting up those numbers in the 2 spot, you're taking a lineup that's already scoring the most runs in baseball, one of the better ones in the majors, and you're sort of just providing that floor that, hey, when some of the guys on the lineup do start slumping, when other guys aren't hitting, at least you have a baseline of what this lineup can be. You aren't going to see stretches maybe like the Dodgers had second half of last season where they were super inconsistent offensively and really struggled to get things going in October.
I will say this, if I can add to that. So 18 games, I know when as fans, and I'm a fan now, when you're looking at, okay, we want this guy to get going, but going back and being a major leaguer, 18 games, if you're an everyday player, is absolutely nothing. It really is nothing, because you realize that it is a long grind, long haul. I remember when I was with the Cubs, right, the late, great Ryan Sammer, we used to have these conversations. Ryan Sammer used to tell me, he goes, for whatever reason, April, I know the cold was a factor in Chicago, but April, he always struggled. He said if he was hitting 235, 240 for the month of April, he knew he was going to have a great year. He goes, sometimes I hit 190, 210 in April. He goes, I always was a slow starter. I don't know why. I tried everything, but for whatever reason, April, he struggled. But he caught fire in May. Maybe it's just one of those times where he's off to a slow start. And remember, it's just a start. He can catch fire, maybe starting in Colorado, catch fire in the month of May, June, and he's off to the races. Guys that play every day realize that. And that's the biggest key. And Kyle Tucker mentioned, he goes, you know what? I may not be trying as hard. I'm just off a little bit. He's going to find it. He's too good of a player. And he's done this for a long time now.
Yeah, Jerry, I think it's important to remind everyone that. I mean, we do this every single year. Like we find the player that's struggling early and we try to find out if what's wrong with them. Are they injured? Are they getting older? Is there some mechanical issue? The truth is, as you point out, we're essentially in the first inning of his season, right?
Yeah.
And ultimately, if he was hitting if he was putting up Andy Pages numbers right now, but struggled in the postseason, that's all people would care about anyway, right? So, I mean, Fabian, they got this hitter to infuse some youth into the lineup and make sure that, hey, he's an additive bat when it matters most on the big stage and help them win another World Series.
Yeah, and sort of like to Jerry's point, to your point, like this is just over 10% of the season. Like this is such a small sliver. And I think I even wrote, like when I talked to Kyle and Aaron Bates this week, like, yeah, the numbers are what they are, but also like a super patient week at the plate or a super red hot week at the plate, all of a sudden those numbers look way different. It's that early in the season where a guy can boost his OPS by 100 points in a single night. So keeping that in mind, like that aren't necessarily worried about. They kind of know the floor and sort of understand that what he brings is stability. And I think that's what the Dodgers are hoping for. I think they view it as a good thing that they are putting up these kinds of numbers as an offense where Kyle Tucker is probably their least productive regular. Like, that's a good sign overall for the health of this lineup going forward to the second half of the season. So you know that some of those guys at the bottom, eventually they're going to have to, their numbers are going to come down a little bit. They aren't hit 200 points of OPS better than the rest of the league for the entire season. So when that happens, then you're going to be leaning more on the guys at the top, like Ohtani, like Tucker, like Freeman, like Betts when he gets healthy. And that's where you're banking on. Like the stars, you pay stars not just for the high end, but for the floor and what you know consistently you're going to be able to get out of those guys.
Yeah, we know he's not going to be striking out 21.3% of the time. For his career, he's an under 16% guy. The isolated power is going to go up. So, yeah, zero concern level for Kyle Tucker, even before the last couple of nights. But coming up next, we got an update on Blake Snell. We'll also talk Andy Pages, and Kike Hernandez and Tommy Edman could be on their way back soon. That's coming up next on the Dodgers Collective.